Israel's army says it has carried out an operation in northern Gaza in preparation for the next stages of combat. In a post on social media site X, it said IDF tanks and infantry struck numerous terrorist cells, infrastructure, and anti-tank missile posts. Soldiers are said to have returned to Israeli territory. On Wednesday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed his country was preparing a ground invasion of Gaza and that we are working against the clock in preparations to destroy Hamas. We are in a war for our sovereignty, for our existence, and we have set ourselves two fundamental objectives: to eradicate Hamas's military and governmental capabilities and to do everything possible to bring the hostages held by the Palestinian Islamist group back home, Netanyahu said in a televised address. Washington's resolution reaffirmed Israel's right to self-defense, urged respect for international laws, especially protection of civilians, and called for humanitarian pauses to deliver desperately needed aid to Gaza. 10 countries on the 15-member council voted in favor, 3 were against, and 2 abstained. The resolution was not adopted because Russia and China cast vetoes. The Russian resolution called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire and unequivocally condemned Hamas' October 7th attack on southern Israel and indiscriminate attacks on civilians in Gaza. 4 countries voted in favor, 2 against, and 9 abstained. The resolution did not pass because it failed to get the minimum 9 yes votes. Under UN Charter, the Security Council is charged with maintaining international peace. But Wednesday's votes, following the rejections last week of a Russian resolution and Brazilian proposal, leave the Council divided and paralyzed over the Israel-Hamas war. U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield accused Russia of submitting its text with no consultations and in bad faith. Russia's UN Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia called Washington's draft a politicized proposal to shore up Israel. A compromise resolution could be drafted. The U.S. president spoke out against retaliatory attacks by Israeli settlers against Palestinians in the West Bank in the aftermath of Hamas's surprise assault on October 7th. Joe Biden said the attacks by extremist settlers were pouring gasoline on already raging fires in the Middle East since the attack, which killed 1,400 people. It has to stop. They have to be held accountable. It has to stop now, he said at the start of a news conference with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who was visiting Washington. Settler violence against Palestinians has intensified in recent weeks, with Palestinians killed by settlers. Rights groups say settlers have torched cars and attacked several small Bedouin communities, forcing them to evacuate to other areas. The violence threatens to open another front in the 2-week-old war, which has already split into other areas, including southern Lebanon and Syria. It also puts pressure on the internationally recognized Palestinian Authority, which administers parts of the West Bank, though is deeply unpopular among Palestinians, in large part because it cooperates with Israel on security matters. The West Bank Protection Consortium, a coalition of non-governmental organizations and donor countries, including the European Union, says hundreds of Palestinians have been forcibly displaced in the West Bank due to settler violence since October 7th. That's on top of the more than 1,100 displaced since 2022. All 3 countries face differing economic pressures that led the International Monetary Fund to warn in September that their socio-political stability was at risk. That warning came shortly before the outbreak of war between Israel and Hamas, which could easily cause economic chaos. The possible fallout is now starting to be recognized by world leaders and policy analysts. For a Biden administration committed to stopping the Israel-Hamas war from widening, the conflict could amplify the economic strains and possibly cause governments to collapse. If the chaos went unchecked, it could spread across a region that is vital for global oil supplies, with reverberations around the globe. The more unstable things are economically, the easier it is for bad actors in the region to stir the pot, said Christopher Swift, an international lawyer and former Treasury Department official. The notion that you can divorce politics from economics is a little bit myopic and naive. Politics, economics, and security go together very closely. French President Emmanuel Macron is promoting, with little success so far, an international coalition to fight the armed Palestinian group Hamas. He pitched the idea during a 2-day trip to the Middle East that started in Israel. Leaders he met with in Israel, the West Bank, Jordan, and Egypt didn't publicly address the issue,